What's up, everybody, and welcome to the State of Wild, episode 25, a regular podcast, YouTube video, web series thing. As usual, we've got CorbettGames joining us tonight. Corbett, how are you doing, friend?
G'day, Meowth. I'm doing fantastically. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. I went out into the real world today, yikes, to finish up some Christmas shopping that I been putting off. And yeah, that was scary. There were so many people in that store. No.
Yeah, very scary. I got released about 3 weeks ago after just months of being locked up, and it was very daunting. Yeah, the first time I saw someone out in public without a mask on, I had to do a complete double take. It felt super weird.
It must be nice, damn.
Yes.
But let's talk about Hearthstone, right? That's why we're all here. Just a reminder that we do 3 things during a normal episode. We talk meta, what's strong, how to beat it, and decks that might be flying underneath the radar, and we have some spicy stuff that Corbett might be dropping on you guys today. Make sure you guys stay tuned. Second, we talk wild news, controversial topics, and maybe the lack thereof. And last but not least, we talk about our decks of the week. But before we get started, just a reminder to leave a like and subscribe if you guys enjoy our content. It's free, and it does actually support us a lot. But yeah, let's go ahead and get started. So earlier this week, on Tuesday, we had 6 nerfs that hit. Most notably for Wild, we had Dino-Tamer Brand going from 7 to 8. Voracious Reader going from 2 to 3. Lorekeeper Polkel going from 4 to 5 mana, and Dreadlord's Bite staying at 3 mana but going from 3 attack to 2. So let's just talk about, first of all, the decks that were directly impacted. And so let's go with the low-hanging fruit. Brand going from 7 to 8 kind of drastically hit normal Reno Hunter. Kind of a big deal. Brand was one of the best decks or cards in that deck anyways. And from it going from 7 to 8, takes the deck that was not really meta anyways and kind of ensures that it won't become meta.
Yeah.
So nothing really too much to talk about that. But with Brand going from 7 to 8, what we did actually do was create this brand new tier 1 archetype that has a 100% win rate against Dark League Warlock according to my 15 games that I played in Legend Ladder. Even Reno Hunter. Like you said last week, whenever you nerf the mana cost of cards, it's really cool to see the impact that they might have, intended or not, in even in odd decks, especially in Wild. And Bran was a really, really nice top-end inclusion in even Arena Hunter. I think the deck is still a meme, but it's a lot of fun to play. And it's semi-competitive, for sure.
Yeah, Bran kind of getting nerfed, like you said. It basically completely closes the door on Reno Hunter ever being a thing in Wild. You kind of need that absurd power spike, and so it's just gone forever. It's over, guys. There's no more Reno Hunter
for the next 3 months until it rotates and they potentially unnerf it. So.
Oh, true. Yeah, I forgot that happens. You're right. Yeah. Well,
I think it
maybe
rotates,
forever's
right?
Not forever.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Well, it's 2020, dude. This year has felt like 6 years, so maybe 3 months will basically feel like forever. Okay, and let's talk about the impact of Voracious Readers. So, Voracious Reader was super popular and super strong in Standard, and it was even more popular and I think even stronger in Wild. So the main deck that it was in was Aggro Druid, and we talked about this in the VS report, where Aggro Druid was actually the most popular deck on the Climb 2 Legend. And the Voracious Reader nerf actually is a big hit for that deck, in my opinion. I think it's... you say 1 mana, but when it becomes suddenly the most expensive card in your deck, especially combined with it big, and I think it's a very, very big deal. And it kind of... I don't want to say killed Aggro Druid, but I think it's no longer in the conversation for a tier 1 deck, and it's nowhere near... It should no longer be near as popular as it was last week. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, it's funny you said oh, it's only 1 mana, and then it made me think, damn, that's 10% of the mana in an Aggro Druid game.
Yeah.
You're
trying to be ending games on turn 3, turn 4. What's going on?
Yeah, exactly. That's a hell of a lot of mana. No, yeah, so I think it's a massive hit. I think Aggro Druid is definitely taken down, has kind of lost its spot from tier 1. And so, yeah, it's kind of a big hit that I think most people sort of understood that, I'd say.
Yeah, for sure. And then a deck that was kind of, I don't want to say flying underneath the radar, because I don't think Pirate Warrior has ever been flying underneath the radar, but Voracious Reader had been slowly picking up steam in Pirate Warrior lists. I know a lot of people were still on the Corsair Cache, Ankar kind of package with bombs, but in the past few weeks, we had seen this shift towards a lower curve Pirate Warrior. No Corsair Cache, no Sky Captain Crag, sometimes even no Leroy, and topping out at Sword Eaters and running Heroic Strikes, just so that you have even more of a draw engine. Because you're all of a sudden less reliant on Ankar because of that, which means it's a lot less polarizing. And then they killed Voracious Reader, 2 to 3 mana. And so Pirate Warrior getting a little bit of a hit as well. I don't think nearly as drastic of a hit as Aggro Druid. I think Pirate Warrior can still maybe get away with it because it's a little bit slower. I don't know if you still want to run Voracious Reader instead of the old package now that it's 3, but I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so Voracious was definitely like, it was the best card, one of the best cards along with Embiggen in Aggro Druid, and it was really kind of in the lower section for Pirate Warrior. Like, it wasn't a particularly strong performer, which makes sense, right? The curve is a little bit higher. I think like if they never hit Reader, the curve would have gotten lower. So like Leroy would have been cut, Crag would have been cut. We would have been looking at a more like 1 and 2 cost cards, and so maybe Voracious would have been good there. But Pirate Warrior, I really don't think it's hurt that much by this, this removal of the card. I don't think you play Voracious to 3. I've personally been trying something a little funky. I've been going with Wriggling Horror in that slot.
Of course. Yes.
and playing Leroy and Crag. Like, I feel really comfortable with them now, without the Reader. So yeah, I've got those situational cards and trying Wriggling Horror. Other things people might try, I don't know, maybe you play Bloodsail Raider, or you look at Cash and another weapon or something. But yeah, I think Pirate Warrior will be just fine.
Yeah, completely unrelated to nerfs. I think a lot of people slept on Sword Eater. That card has been sick in Pirate Warrior. Yeah. And so we talked about the decks that were impacted by nerfs with the Voracious Reader move from 2 to 3, but something we kind of touched on last week with the move from 2 to 3, Odd Demon Hunter got a brand new draw engine for its brand new 23 1-drop Odd Demon Hunter list. My initial impressions have been, I think a lot of people have just been taking out the Dreadlord's Bite that got nerfed and slotting in Voracious Readers. I kind of just took out Acrobatics and put Voracious Readers in. I think the Voracious Reader is fine. I like it better than the Acrobatics, but I don't think it has done a ton to the deck to make it, take Aggro Druid's place in Tier 1 as that like super fast, aggressive deck to climb with.
Yeah, I think that Odd DH is a loser, the nerfs, right? Where it arguably picks up the Voracious Reader, which I'm still not entirely sure whether it's actually better than Acro, or whether you want either. Like, hell, I don't know. But I think like the Dreadlord's Bite is like a really big deal. So ODH, it was kind of off meta, sort of low key, one of the better decks in the format outside the big ones. And I don't feel as good about it now, sadly. So, poor Demon Hunter. I think I said Aggro Druid, but yeah, poor Demon Hunter.
Well, both Aggro Druid and Odd Demon Hunter both kind of getting hit a little bit with these nerfs for sure. And then with the nerf to Polkel, obviously Reno Priest gets lowered in power level, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But before we dive on into the Reno Priest conversation, I think Polkel was actually, the nerf to Polkel was a bigger hit to a lot of the off-meta darlings that a lot of people love to play, right? The Uneven Paladins, the Uthero Decay, Holy Wrath Paladins, all the combo Paladins, really. Totem Shamans, right, to put the Bloodlust on top. And all these other off-meta combo decks that took advantage of Polkel, I think, see that nerf a lot more, or take that nerf a lot harder than Reno Priest does. And then to a lesser extent, Reno Seeker Mage, I know a lot of people were still running Polkel in that deck to put Sage, Crystal Runner, and the 2 Renos at the top of your deck, put your best cards at the top of your deck. And with it moving to 5, I really can't see Reno Seeker Mages still wanting to run that, just because that deck is it's a tempo-based deck, and a 1-mana shift in that style of deck is a big deal, and you can't really get away with that in Reno Seeker Mage, in my opinion. So I think you need to cut it from Reno Seeker Mage, which will make the deck a little bit less consistent, but I think the deck is still fine, like a tier 2 deck that has a place in the metagame, but it's not one of the best in the format, and I don't think Polkel going to 5 really changes all that much for it.
Yeah, for sure. I think that, the fact that you named off so many potential decks that were hurt by Polkout kind of gives a good reason why Polkout was hit, right? Like, it was very, it was a very powerful card that kind of opened up a ton of strategies that were often particularly uninteractive and stuff. And so, I think like the fact that so many cards wanted to look at playing it, and now the fact that it's a bit more niche, right, is a good thing overall.
Yeah, I think it's more in line with something like Hemet now, that destroyed all your 3-cost cards. Like you still have to draw the cards, right? Which is why I'm okay with it still being at 5. I would have been totally okay with a nuke to 6 mana just so that I never have to see it again. Um, but yeah, it's more in line. Definitely way more in line with its effect than it used to be. But let's talk a little bit about Reno Priest because I've gotten this question a lot on stream, and I feel like we should just probably address it on the podcast. I think you still run Polkelt in Reno Priest, and I think you're still very, very happy to run Polkelt in Reno Priest. Obviously, when you nerf a card in a very, very strong deck, the deck is going to get worse. That's just kind of the nature of a nerf. But I think Polkelt's still putting your best cards and putting your combo cards at the top of your deck is super important for that deck. And you can kind of get away with the 1 more mana because of all the access Priest has to board clears and healing anyways.
Yeah, this is kind of what we expected from before playing with the changes. Definitely 100%. I will say you run Polkelt in Raza. It's kind of like the only deck that comes to mind, I think, that actually still wants the Polkelt.
Yeah.
I've seen some weird mask mage. I don't know if you've seen this list me out, but I mean that's a list
the
that might
Vargoth
also
Mask
want Polkelt.
one. Yeah.
Yeah, that one. But apart from like that, in terms of the more competitive stuff, I think like the only one that really wants the Polkelt still, and you still 100% run it.
Yeah. So we talked about the decks that got impacted by all of these nerfs. So let's take a little bit of a step back and let's talk about kind of the impact of these nerfs on the WoW metagame as a whole. And like, do you think that the toning down of Aggro Druid and Demon Hunter, and to a lesser extent Reno Priest, really impacts the meta in a big, significant way?
No, I don't think it's a significant change. I think Standard, for example, is going through a much, much bigger change, right? Where Standard has seen Demon Hunter, the most popular class, kind of taking a big chunk out, and now Evolve Shaman is kind of like a tier S, and it's completely enveloping the format. It looks like it's going to be like 20% play rate. That's like, in my head, like a big change. And Wild's not going through that, right? Wild, we're still playing the same kind of stuff. You're going to see less Aggro Druid. You're going to see less Odd DH, which wasn't already that popular. But for the most part, it's the same kind of thing. But, you know, changes don't have to be massive to be impactful, you know? Like, there can be subtle differences that kind of snowball. And so I think the nerfs have been impactful, right?
Yeah, I think Reno Priest is still, I think, one of the 2 best decks. I know in the recent VS report, it had it and Secret Mage as the top 2 decks, and I still think Reno Priest is in that conversation for top 2 decks. I think the big thing is Reno Priest will lose a few percentage points when it comes to playing against other aggressive decks. So when you're playing against Odd Paladin, you're playing against Odd Rogue or Kingsbane Rogue, the earliest you can have Reno is on 8 if you play Polkelt, right? And you have it naturally drawn it beforehand. And that's a 1 turn swing, right? From 7 to 8, and that's a big deal. 1 turn makes a huge difference, right? We've seen that before with stuff like Quest Mage. But like the fact that you still have Scream on 7, I think makes that not hurt as much, right? Because Scream against stuff like Odd Paladin, Odd Rogue, for the most part, is, you know, pretty insane. And then you can follow it up with Arena top deck afterwards, right? But it also gives you an extra turn, potentially, for your opponents to draw Raza and spawn if you're playing a slower deck, which maybe gives you another turn to find your Dirty Rat or your Finley Wizard. But I still think, as a whole, Reno Priest is still very, 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 very strong. And will be shaping the metagame moving forward.
Yeah, I definitely think Reno Priest will be sort of the initial big bad, and that'll continue. But I don't think it's the best deck anymore. Prior to the nerfs, I felt pretty good at saying that I felt Reno Priest was the best deck, and I thought Secret Mage was very close after kind of getting some more information on stuff. And right now, I think Secret Mage is very clearly the best deck to me. It's not really a particularly close contest as far as I'm concerned. I feel confident in this. The Secret Mage is the best deck in Wild right now.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so prior to the nerfs, the Secret Mage versus Reno Priest matchup was close to 50-50. Given like the confidence intervals and everything like that, it could totally swing one way or the other. So close to 50-50. You think that with the nerf to Polkelt, it swings into the Secret Mage favor, mainly because of stuff like Reno coming down a turn later?
I think it's a combination of a couple things. Like you're saying, the Polkelt being a lot worse in that matchup, right? It becomes really bad to play like a 5-mana Yeti against Secret Mage. That's a aspect, right?
Yeah.
But I also think Secret Mage's builds have largely improved in small ways. So like the list that I used to hit 1, and then which was featured in the VS report, that has largely like overtaken like the archetypes as a whole. If you look at like KJ's replay stuff, you can see how the percentage of games with that specific list are really, really high, and Secret Mage is kind of more consolidated now. Usually Secret Mage is like a very varied archetype. And currently, like with double rigged fair game becoming very standard, and kind of things like Ice Block being cut, which is a card that's not particularly useful against Reno Priest, it just makes it very consistent. I think the Mage has gotten slightly better in that matchup. So I think, for me at least, I think it's arguably even, but that's kind of the baseline for it. I can see it actually being slightly Mage favored, if anything, which I know might catch people off guard. I still think Reno Priest is very good. It's kind of in my next, I don't want to say tier necessarily, but it's in my next group of decks that I think are very, very good. I have like about 5 groups, and Reno Priest is 5 in that group, and Reno Priest is kind of at the top of that one. But yeah, I really do feel confident that I think Secret Mage is really, really strong right now, and is my pick.
I mean, I think you might be right. I think, let me see how I want to phrase this. I think that
Careful.
Yeah, I have to be really careful with how I say this, because I know that I like crap on Reno Priest all the time about how it's so dumb, and people are going to call me out for it. But I still think, like I said beforehand, right? I've had Reno Priest and Secret Mage as like the top 2 decks pretty comfortably, I think, to me, and I could be convinced, right? Obviously, I want evidence to support. No, but like I think that I can get behind Secret Mage being a better deck than Reno Priest, given the nerfs to Reno Priest. But currently, I think you have to take into account the fact that the entire metagame is warped around Reno Priest, and so give the meta a couple weeks, right? After people listen to this episode and listen to your sage advice and start playing Secret Mage on ladder all over the place. Let the meta adapt. Let the Secret Eaters come out of the collection for a little bit and come back to me, right? Because I think Reno Priest has sustained its power level even with everybody running tech for Reno Priest, right?
Right.
And I think that's a testament to how powerful the deck is. At the minimum, how meta warping Reno Priest is. And I do think Secret Mage is strong, but I would hesitate to put it as the best deck. I think right now, since the meta is not teching for it currently, right, then maybe it is the best deck to take the ladder for like the next week, and then come back next week and we can talk about it, and we can see, and we'll see how the meta looks in a couple weeks. But yeah, sure. So let's go ahead and move on to our wild news. Yeah, so in the past couple of days, we actually had an interesting event going on, an NA/EU, like a West versus China, so West meets East, kind of competitive wild Hearthstone event that was going on, being hosted by Reno Jackson and friends over at Team Wildside. And we wanted to talk about this because this was kind of like the first like semi-competitive event for the Wild format in what feels like forever, right? We haven't had a Wild Open in 2 years. We had Solemn's huge tournament that he hosted earlier this year that felt like 2 years ago, but it was in May. And then,
good tournament.
Yeah, the tournament that was going on. If you guys don't know, Corbett actually won that tournament, so that's why he's bragging. But but yeah, so this was kind of like the first big thing that was going on. Got a lot of attention on Twitter and on Twitch. A lot of big names playing in it, including the guy sitting below me. Corbett played in that as well. So
we don't talk about that. We don't talk about what happened.
Yeah, just a heads up, spoiler alerts, we're going to be talking about the event itself and some of the results and kind of our impressions. So if you don't want to listen to this, go ahead and skip over to part 3. All right, that's my warning, right? So now if you're listening, there's no excuses. So yeah, spoiler alert, China won big. There were 9 games. It was a best of 9, I believe, basically. And China won 7-2. It wasn't even close. So Corbett, you actually competed in this. I didn't actually get to watch many of the games because they were at really crappy times for the East Coast over in the US, so I didn't get to watch many of them, but I know you played in them and you watched a lot of the games. So what was your impression? I have a couple of questions, but what were your impressions of the event, first of all? Did you enjoy playing in it? Do you wish there were more? Do you think this is a thing that they should be doing more often?
Yeah, so this is kind of like the third time this thing has been attempted, and I think that this time was like much smoother. I think overall, we were able to kind of fix some tech issues, and everything kind of ran very smoothly. The production was really good from the Team Wildside channel. Shout outs to all the casters and people behind the scenes there. But yeah, for me, like I was actually incredibly nervous the day before the event, and then by the time it rolled around, I was like, it's a best of 5 wild. Like it's just for fun, and that's kind of how I felt about it. I was very happy to play in it. It was interesting, right? Like it's not often that we get to do Conquest, and so it was really cool to kind of talk to everyone behind the scenes about lineups and all that kind of thing. Generally, the kind of thing that we were looking at, it was a lot of like bring the best decks was what I guess I'll say NAEU. I'm not technically from either, but I guess that's the team.
Australia is the US, right? Basically.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, kind of. But yeah, so there was a lot of from our side. It was a lot of like Secret Mage, Reno Priest, Dark Lair Warlock, Kingsbane. That was kind of the most popular thing. There was like a fourth deck was swapped out here and there. On the Chinese side, I think we saw a little bit more variance.
Yeah, for sure.
So we saw some really fancy stuff. Like there's a clip going around of a Mill Druid game where the Mill Druid OTKs on turn 5.
Yeah, I saw that.
That was insane to watch live. There was also like more specific niche targeting strategies. So they went for things like Reno Priest targeting with things like Bomb Warrior and lots of Grizzly Wizard packages. But overall, yeah, I mean, I didn't get the chance to catch every game because it was like a 7-hour event at like 3 a.m. at times for me. But I think the game's really good. I was really happy to compete in it and stuff. China winning 7-2. Personally, I'm not actually like, obviously props to China. I'll say, props to that team and congrats, and they deserve the wins and all that good stuff. But I would say is that, it's wild. It's best of 5. Sometimes, you don't lose and you didn't necessarily do something wrong. So I think that even if it's a 7-2 record, it's like, you can easily imagine it being like a 5-4 or something like that. But we'll see. We'll see how this goes in the future. So they're going to host more events. There is going to be more collaboration between Team Wildside and the Chinese group. So the next one they've put out there on the 17th to 18th of January is planning on bringing 32 players. So half from China, half from the rest of the world. And it'll be like single elimination, top 4 get prize money, and the best team between the two like conferences will also get prize money. So that way they're incorporating like an individual aspect and see like who really is on top, while also having this sort of team idea, which I think is really fun. Yeah, having these sort of events is always really sweet. I was very happy to participate in it. And yeah, we'll just see how it goes in the future. So yeah, thank you obviously to everyone as a participant who put it together. If you want to go back and watch the VODs, they're on like Team Wildsides. Jack also streamed them. Jack did a really, really good job casting, I will say. Like really, really great job. So yeah, make sure you guys go check out the VODs if you're interested in seeing some of this stuff.
Yeah. And then I guess my last question is, did you get a feeling? I know it's a Conquest tournament, so it's kind of hard to tell this, but we always talk about the difference between like these Chinese meta reports and like our meta reports over here with Tempest Storm and Vicious Syndicate and all that kind of good stuff. Did you get that same feeling of like they're playing in a different metagame, or did you get a feel of that? Or I know it's kind of really hard in a very small sample size in the Conquest lineup, but did you see like a clear distinction when it came to like Reno Priest list, for example, right? Like a lot of the Chinese meta report lists or Chinese Reno Priest lists that they brought to the tournament were very, very different compared to like the standard stock list that a lot of you guys from NA and U ran, right? Did you get a kind of feeling about that?
Yeah, so I think like it is hard to differentiate, right? Because of targeting strategies and things. I will say that there were certain card choices that felt off or felt different. Yeah. For example, like Cold Light Oracle was something that's more commonly seen, and we saw that in a number of the Chinese players lists. But I would say like they seem to very much respect Reno Priest in terms of like a few players going out and targeting it, it being very, very broad on their side. So in terms of like that, like big picture stuff, I don't think there was anything that kind of stood out as a very sharp discrepancy. Yeah. I actually thought that there was a chance that the NA and EU players were going to be like all bring in Kingsbane and that it wouldn't be seen at all. And that wasn't the case either, where a lot of the Chinese players also brought Kingsbane, which was interesting. I kind of regret bringing it personally, but that's a separate issue. But yeah, I don't think there was that kind of thing. Something that like behind the scenes, some of the Chinese admins said is that they were actually very happy though to kind of do the event and say, hey, we can learn from them and they can learn from us, and we can kind of make it like a fun collaborative thing. And so even if I personally didn't necessarily learn that much, I think that a lot of people were able to like take something away from it at least.
Yeah, which I think is kind of the coolest thing. But I do agree. I think the whole event itself was very, like, it's an awesome concept, and it sounds like it was very well run and put together this time around. So I'm looking forward to the next one. Again, shout outs to Team Wildside and the group that put this together and streamed it and hosted it and ran it, all that kind of good stuff. And I'm looking forward to the next one. But yeah, I think that's it for Wild News. Let's go ahead and move on to our decks of the week. All right, so moving into our decks of the week. So we have 2 meta decks and 1 off meta deck that we're always going to show you, whether you're tryharding for ladder, trying to hit legends, or hanging out at a ranked floor, wanting to just have a little bit of fun. So the first list we're going to talk about is actually a post-nerf Odd Demon Hunter. I know a lot of people were asking about this because of the Dreadlord nerf and, you know, the potential buff or inclusion of Voracious Reader. So Corbett, you took this one a ladder. How did this one feel for you?
I mean, it felt weaker, I think, because of the Dreadlord's bite, but I really wanted to see just how the readers felt. And it was hard to say, you know, I'll be honest. Some of that was because there were games where I drew both of them, and so they kind of lose value, right, when you draw like both cards. But yeah, like the way that the deck is built, we've kind of like added in some 1-drops because we want that curve to be a little bit lower with the readers. Because obviously, you know, this isn't a low enough curve. We have to keep going with deckhand and patches added in. But yeah, odd DH, like the Voracious were powerful in some games where I remember it drew 6 cards against a Reno Priest. I gave it the Divine Shield. They couldn't deal with it. Felt really good. But yeah, if you want to give this a shot as like a post-nerf thing, like maybe you can be the one to figure out the Voracious Reader, whether it's good or not. Get your feelings on that, or whether acrobatics is stronger. I think that's totally fine. But yeah, I think like without the weapon, Voracious also becomes like without like the 3-drop weapon, it makes even more sense, I think, to play this over the over the acro. But yeah, I'm not sure. Have you had the chance to try Voracious in Odd DH, Meowth?
Yeah, I was playing it. I was playing it with the nerf Dreadlord's bite because I kind of wanted to get a feeling of both of them. The bite sucks. I will go ahead and say that. So I think this is definitely better than the list I was running. It's crazy how like one attack makes a huge difference when it comes to the attack of a weapon. But
nerfs matter.
I will say, this is probably because I have the worst luck with my acrobatics, because I always draw like the other acrobatics or a Stilt Stepper or a Baku, and I can never draw 2 off of them. So it always felt like the Voracious Reader was better. But that's also because I didn't play a huge sample size of either deck, both pre-nerf / post-nerf. But I will say, I think Voracious Reader is still probably like the go-to. I think the big downside right now for Odd Demon Hunter is also just like the lack of really, really strong 1-drops. I don't know if you got that feeling, but like I was never happy with a lot of the 1-drops that I was putting in my deck. I know Sigil Runners are more card drop, but I was like, I wish this was like a 1-mana 1/3 or a 2/2 or something that did more damage, just because I don't know, it felt lacking to me in multiple aspects. Like nothing really stood out to me as like, oh, this was really, really good. And so to me, I'm not super excited about Odd Demon Hunter.
Yeah, I actually feel pretty good about the 1-drops that DH has available. I don't think they're not like premium, like they're not like the best cards we could be having, but I think it's like, you know, like Battle Fiend, Squire, Intrepid. I think those are all like really good starting points for like aggressive 1-drops. And I think that a lot of the other support cards, whether they be Beaming or Org Merchant to kind of like protect your scaling guys. I think Penflinger and like Deckhand on 1 is really good. I think like
Deckhand loses a lot of value though
drops,
without the weapon, right? So like
it does, yeah. You're mostly just playing it as just like the upgraded living roots kind of thing. Like you're just praying that you hit it early, and it's just like
and then you drop patches every game, and then just
yeah, we don't talk about that part. But no, I actually think this is sort of a strength of the deck is that it does have 1-drops that make sense in the list, with Squire and Battlefiend in particular.
Yeah. I guess I find myself like I'm scared like. If you're opening hands or like sidekick, consume magics, and like og merchants or mana burdens, then like you have 25 1-drops in your deck, but you don't really have 25 1-drops in the deck. And like if I'm gonna be playing this many 1-drops, like I kind of want to make sure that I'm hitting those, Like I had multiple games where like I had Penflingers kind of stranded in my hand, or like I don't want to mana burn my opponent on turn 1. But I guess I have to so that they don't get too far ahead of me, and stuff like that. It's like I guess that's what I really mean by like my 1-drops were like kind of lacking quality. Not a lot of stuff that you're
that
like.
Makes sense.
You only have like 6 cards, 7 cards that you really are excited to play on turn 1. And,
you have.
And the rest,
I think you have like 8 of
those, right?
Yeah, you have like 8 really premium scaling ones, right? The Fiend, Squire, Intrepid, and Deckhand. And sometimes Deckhand's not good because of obvious reasons. So yeah, I totally get what you mean now. Talking about that.
But regardless, I think this is definitely the shell to move like forward with in Odd Demon Hunter, and I'm looking forward to see some of the other tools that they get, mainly in terms of good 1-drops to run in Wild Odd Demon Hunter. But let's move on to the other deck, the one that you hit rank 1 legend with. Again, it's getting kind of boring at this point because you hit it so much. I'm just kidding. But let's talk about ETC, where I know you're kind of in love with this deck. Talk to the people about, first of all, the people that don't know what ETC Combo Warrior is, and then why it's such an interesting deck to you. And then you can start talking about the deck list itself, I guess, if you really want to.
Sure. So ETC Warrior is the deck that took over Standard, right? It was one of the best decks in Standard prior to the nerfs. The basic premise of the deck is to have ETC, damage it some way, most often with Org Merchant, and then you copy it a bunch with like Bloodsworn Mercenary, and then you rush in with Broomsticks. So basically, you develop multiple ETCs, and then you rush stuff in, and then you kill your opponent in 1 turn. It's like an OTK combo deck. In Wild, things get a little crazy. There are some kind of big improvements of the deck and some really complicated lines. So in Standard, this deck is generally considered like very, very high skill cap for the most part, one of the highest skill cap decks in that format. And I think the Wild version is actually more difficult to play. So the differences between like Standard and Wild really is that in Standard you can get away with playing Rattlegore. They play like Rattlegore as the win condition, right? Because if your opponent doesn't play minions, you don't have anything to rush into. Yeah. So in Standard, you can play Rattlegore, and they have to like do something, right? They can't just sit back. In Wild, Rattlegore is a 9-mana card, and there's a lot of answers to that, like Psychic Scream, for example. So we have like Dirty Rat, so you can attack into. But the biggest thing that makes this deck so complicated in Wild, I think, is Emperor Thaurissan. So
the classic
in Standard, in Standard, there's like the very stock 10 mana combo that I just talked about, right? Where you double blood, ETC, damage it, rush with Broomstick. Wild things get really complicated because, you can just do more stuff. You can do stuff out of sequencing. You can do double Broomstick turns. You can do Dirty Rat turns to like get stuff on the board. You can have situations where you'll have like Bran and like Bloodsworn Mercenary, and you can end up with 5 ETCs on the board instead of 3. This deck is really, really complicated on the combo turns. Managing board space is very, very difficult, and managing how much stuff that you have to like attack into, because you need your opponent to have stats on board to attack into, and managing that as well is so tough. This is in addition to the fact that skipper turns are also historically or traditionally like not super easy, I would say. Like there's a lot of sequencing going on with skipper and Smith and Brute and Acolyte and kind of min-maxing that. This deck is really, really cool. It's kind of taking over the DMH shell, so the previous Dead Man's Hand. It's only about 6 cards different, but it's really running that same package, except instead of running the Dead Man's Hand Cold Lights, we're running this OTK style finisher instead. I've had a really good time trying this deck, and I've also had a really bad time because it hurts my head a lot. This deck is really, really tough.
Is this deck finally the win condition that the Risky Skipper shell is waiting for, or do you think it's like too complicated, too like, I don't want to say skill intensive, but like it's like you mentioned, it's a pretty big brain combo deck. So do you think it'll ever, catch on as like the warrior deck to go to, or do you think that Dead Man's Hand is probably going to be the way that most people still tend to go towards?
I think players will definitely keep playing DMH for two reasons. Like the first one that you said is that I think, for as much as DMH gets talked about as a big brain deck, it's a much simpler win condition, I think, than what we're talking about here. And the other one being, like people just like Dead Men. Like people just like
people
to play
love their mill deck.
Yeah, people just love to play Dead Man's Hand. So I don't see it taking over necessarily. But I guess the better question, or the way I'd rephrase it, is like, is it better, and how much better?
Yeah.
Right. It's not necessarily just like what people play, but like, is this going to move the needle? And we both had our doubts, right? We talked about this in the VS report that people did toy with this idea in Wild and hadn't really showed much success, and I think that still is the case. But I think there's a chance that this is actually pretty solid. I don't think it's top tier necessarily because it does still maintain bad matchups. You don't want to see Secret Mage. Secret Mage like hurts his deck a lot. But you have a lot of flexible game plans against even stuff like Big Priest or other aggressive decks. You can still clean them up with skipper packages and stuff. So I want to keep playing this. I don't know yet. But I know that someone like Hazer is another person that's very much fallen in love with this as another like high legend player, and he's been playing this a ton. So it's an interesting deck, and I recommend that if anyone likes the skipper package, or if anyone has played the standard version, I think there's definitely like room to play this wild version, and it might be better than what people actually think.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to give it a try. I've been avoiding it because I watch you play it on your stream, and it hurts my head, and I normally go for the wrong line, so I'm kind of scared to try it out for myself. But it also like, I enjoy the Risky Skipper package. I just don't normally enjoy the super fatigue oriented game style of DMH, right. So I might have to try this out and see if I enjoy it.
So many missed lethals. So many missed lethals.
That's on brand for me, right? So definitely need to play it now.
Yes.
But yeah, you guys definitely check it out and report back and let us know how you enjoy this deck. And then the last deck, I have to talk about it because I hit top 100 legend from
the Meta Breaker.
The Meta Breaker. Hit top 100 legend with this beautiful, beautiful piece of a deck. Let's talk about the newly buffed tier 1 archetype of even Reno Hunter, the Dark Glare counter. I say that because I went like 4-0 with it, and totally sample sizes don't matter. But easy basically, I mean, you're running like just Hunter good stuff, right? The secret package early game, Phase Soccer, Panthera, Scientist, all that kind of good stuff. And then you're running Dragon's Bane, and with Dino Tamer Brand at 8, I wanted to make sure that I was beating Priest, just because I have a hard-on for beating Priest, because I hate the deck. And so I'm running like the Call of the Wild and the Grand Slam Zul'jin package. Almost completely unnecessary, but also a lot of fun because they're really cool cards. But the rest of the deck is pretty straightforward, good stuff. The Knife Vendors, I think a lot of people were kind of surprised to see that cutting the list, but even Hunter, you have a 1-mana deal 2 to the opponent's face. You're a pretty aggressive deck. I know we're running 10 drops, but that 8-mana spell and that 10-mana spell, they are spells that do a lot of damage to your opponent's face, right? Mm-hmm. And then the 10 drop kind of replays them and hits the opponent's face for even more damage. And so like that's why there's no Rexar, because Rexar is a value card, not a face card, sort of thing. Knife Vendor is a 4-mana deal 4 to the opponent's face. It's pretty good. But yeah, I went on a tear with it. It was really, really good. And it actually performed so well that I'm interested to see how like straight up even Hunter, how well that might perform. I know you don't get Bran, but back when Quest Mage was super popular and super strong, you had even Hunter as kind of like one of the counters to Quest Mage because it was such a strong aggressive deck. And I'm wondering, with Rinling's Rifle and Knife Vendors and Dragon's Bane, like, what if you just like top out again Greymane, and then you just have, double Knife Vendor, double life drinker rifle Dragon's Bane as your 6/4 drops, and then just all your good 2 drops. And I wonder how strong of an aggro hunter that might actually be.
Yeah, I think this direction for the Reno even actually, like if you're gonna play Reno Hunter, I can see this being better than a normal version. To be honest, like you're not really missing out on any of the strong payoffs, but we get to run a whole bunch of the Gen synergy. So all of a sudden, Dragon's Bane and Phase Stalker become very, very strong, and things like Commander or Sniper. I actually like this a lot. So I like that you've also taken it in a beat priest direction, because that's the kind of matchup that it would traditionally struggle against, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like this kind of even hunter can sometimes have a little bit of a rough time. And so the fact that you've taken the curve all the way up, running a ton of top end, right? With Cole, Brand, Nagrand, and the Zul'jin. I imagine Priest isn't super happy once you kind of get to those big power spike turns. So yeah, I actually like this build a lot. I think there is probably some room for, a bit more experimentation and sort of like a couple cards here and there. For example, I don't know exactly like how much pirate stuff we're seeing right now, so like you can look at something else. So for Galaka maybe, but overall, I really like the direction. I like the whole build, and so yeah, this is like something that I kind of memed about, the idea of even Reno Hunter, but it's also is like kind of a little bit of a hint of truth in it, right? Where I think it does just kind of make sense. It's not going to be the best deck in the format by any means, but it's cool, and yeah, I'm happy that you were able to get some wins and some likes on the deck list and stuff too.
That's true. I will say, if you're playing Hunter, you might as well be playing to have fun. So why not have fun with the?
That's a great point. Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah. But yeah, guys, time to wrap up. That'll be it for us tonight. We're going to be doing State of the Wild episodes every Sunday. We've got a special episode in store for you guys next week for our last episode of the year. And so if you guys enjoy these episodes, make sure you guys drop a subscription so that you guys know when these videos go live. Make sure you guys share with your friends, share with others. And just a reminder that we're also on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all your podcast distributors. So if you guys would like to listen on the go, make sure you guys check us out there. And yeah, Corbett, thank you again for joining me. Let the people know where they can find you.
Guys, you can find me at CorbettGames on Twitch and Twitter and YouTube. I also have the Corbett Daily YouTube account as well, where I'm kind of putting up this highlights from every stream I do. So yeah, that's where you can find me. Thank you very much for tuning in. And yeah, thank you, Meow.
Yeah, we appreciate you guys watching. We hope you all enjoyed. Stay safe out there. Enjoy your holidays. And we'll see you guys next time. Later.
Bye, guys.